everyone. Welcome. This is the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness Legislative Action Committee for May. And so welcome and nice to see all you smiling faces. We have a lot to talk about today. We have an exciting guest, so let's jump into it. And I did want to mention Eric Huffnagel, our CEO, is out on vacation, so good for him. And so I'll be covering both the state and federal portions today, so you're stuck with me. So this is our mission statement, and you can go to the next slide. Today, we will be covering, we have a wonderful guest speaker from Pew Charitable Trusts. We're going to cover some federal updates. We have some exciting state updates as well. I'd like to invite everyone to mute yourself for the best sound quality. And we will have some MICA updates. We have a few things going on. And then we want to hear from you. What's going on in your community? Anything happening that you want to let us know about? So we'll have some time for that as well. And then, yes, thank you, Amy. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Ishan Kaura from Pew Charitable Trusts. And he is going to talk to us today about wage garnishment protection legislation in Michigan. So I will stop talking and have you take it away.
Thanks, Lisa. Let me share my screen real quick. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ishan. I'm with the Pew Charitable Trusts. Since 2021, Pew has been working with the Michigan State Court Administrative Office, excuse me, and their Justice for All Commission to examine business-to-consumer debt lawsuits across the state. Today, we want to give you a quick overview of Senate Bill 408, which increases garnishment protections. And so thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me today. So quick overview on business-to-consumer debt lawsuits in Michigan. Each year, there are more than 200,000 of these cases that are filed in Michigan districts courts. That's more than any other case type, with the exception of traffic cases. So it's more than evictions, more than misdemeanors, felonies, anything like that. Only case type with more is traffic. These cases are for unsecured debt, which includes unpaid medical bills, credit card balances, and auto or payday loans. And while the median amount in controversy in these cases is $1,600, 75% of these cases are for dollar amounts that are less than $3,700. When putting together the report, the Justice for All Commission was interested to see who is most affected by debt collection lawsuits. What it found was that race and income are both factors in who is likely to be sued. So on this chart, you'll see a breakdown. All the way on the left, you'll see the average case filing rates in neighborhoods with majority white households. And all the way on the right are the average case filing rates in majority Black neighborhoods. And these are broken down by income level. What you'll see is that on average, there are more debt cases filed in majority Black neighborhoods across all income levels. But what you'll also see is that in majority white neighborhoods, as income levels increase, case filing rates in those neighborhoods decline. But that's not the case in majority Black neighborhoods, where case filing rates stay relatively similar, regardless of income level. And so this pattern likely reflects differences in wealth driven by historical inequities and discrimination. And something that's unique about these cases is that they have a bit of a power imbalance. So on one side, there's these sophisticated debt collection agencies who have their own attorneys, and they file a large volume of cases. 70% of these cases in Michigan are filed by just 10 companies, most of whom are out-of-state private debt buyers. 70% of these cases in Michigan are filed by just 10 companies. As I mentioned, these companies purchase debts for pennies on the dollar and then sue to collect for the full amount owed. So let's say you had a $1,600 debt. A debt buyer may purchase the debt for between $50 and $100 and then sue to collect the full $1,600. And on the right, you'll see a chart with Michigan's top filers, including Midland Funding, Portfolio Recovery Associates, and Jefferson Capital Systems. the three of whom combined total more than 40% of all debt collection cases in Michigan. On
Could
the
you,
other,
I'm sorry to
oh.
interrupt you. Could you explain again the debt purchase process? Like how much and why the debt is being sold, and then how do these people make money after buying it? Just briefly.
So what happens is, let's say you take out a credit card for Discover or Citibank, and you have the inability to pay off such credit card. Maybe you're paying your medical bills using the credit card. Maybe you had some situation in your household or in your life that occurred that causes you to have to focus on paying back other bills. What happens is after a certain period of time, that credit card company may decide that they might not be able to collect on your debt anymore. And once that debt becomes uncollectible, they have a couple options. One is they can write it off, which is what they frequently do. And then once they do that, what they do is they will sell it to organizations that are focused on purchasing debt. And what these organizations will do is they'll purchase the debt, again, for pennies on the dollar. And so the credit card company makes a certain percentage of that money back, and albeit small. So again, for like a $1,600 debt, maybe they'll get $100 for it, which is more than they might have been able to collect anyways. And then those debt collection companies, the debt buyers, they then sue you for the full amount owed, and they litigate against you to try and receive a judgment in court and collect the money that way. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes.
And the other thing I want to highlight here is that on the other side of these cases are generally self-represented defendants, many of whom who are unfamiliar with court processes. As it says here on the slide, fewer than 1% of Michigan consumers in these cases have legal representation. In civil cases, you aren't given a court-appointed lawyer, and for a $1,600 debt, most people aren't able to afford a lawyer who may charge them a couple $100 for their time. So in the majority of these cases, people are not aware of how to respond to the lawsuit or even if the debt is legitimate. And as a result, nearly 7 in 10 debt collection lawsuits end in a default judgment. This is when the consumer does not appear in court, and so the debt collectors automatically win without having to prove their case. So the Justice for All Commission is now working to change court rule and ensure that consumers understand who is suing them and what they're being sued for, and that documentation from debt buyers is appropriate. So you might ask, what happens after the court rules in favor of a debt collector? Well, 80% of judgments result in garnishment, which is when the debt collector is able to seize money from the wages or bank accounts of working families, take their property, or anything similar to satisfy the debt. That's really the whole point of the process, which is to collect on the debt in the end. So garnishment is something that is codified in statute, which means that it can't be changed by court rule, and thus changes must be made through the legislature. Of note, Michigan garnishment statutes have not been meaningfully updated since 1964, and they reflect the cost of living at that time. They have not been adjusted for inflation. So the statute talks about protecting cattle, swine, and hens, but it's not discuss things like laptops or cell phones because those weren't even invented at the time that the laws were written. And currently in statute, to satisfy a debt, Michigan allows debt collectors to seize up to 25% of a working family's paycheck, as long as they earn more than $217 in weekly wages. They're also able to drain a bank account down to $0, which is incredibly destabilizing because that family may no longer be able to pay for rent, groceries, childcare, and the rest of their day-to-day needs. The law also allows debt collectors to seize an outsized portion of their assets, including their car and their home, as well as the entirety of the family's state earned income, the state's income tax return, including the EITC, which I know Michigan worked very hard to push for in the last few years. Estimates from the Treasury suggest that about 78,000 state EITCs will be garnished this year. I know April 15th was just a few weeks ago. If the average state EITC increase was about $600, this amounts to almost $50 million in taxpayer-funded support that will be directly seized by debt collectors without ever making its way to its intended recipient, which is the working family. Now about Senate Bill 408 specifically. Senate Bill 408 does not forgive debt, but it increases protections to match other states. The bill makes the state EITC exempt from garnishment and increases protections for wages, bank accounts, and other assets so that working families' weekly wages, so that families are able to afford their day-to-day needs. So on this chart, you'll see that current law protects $217 in families' weekly wages, and above that, 25% of a paycheck can be garnished. Senate Bill 408 protects $516 in working families' weekly wages, above which only 15% can be garnished. There's also a breakdown of how much neighboring states protect. I've also included South Carolina on this chart since they're the only other state that we know of that allows for the entire state income tax return to be garnished, but their practice is different since they don't allow any wages to be garnished. As I mentioned earlier, current Michigan law does not protect any money that is in a family's bank account. That number would be increased to $800, as well as traceable wages. And that's self-executing, which means that the person doesn't have to request their court to preserve that $800, but rather that would happen automatically. Current law also allows debt collection agencies to seize a person's car to satisfy the debt, and all that they would have to return to the person is $1,000. That person may then have to purchase a new car, presumably with only $1,000 to do so, which isn't really reflective of the modern day cost of a car. And so this bill would make sure that that person would have at least $15,000 returned to them if their car was seized. And then, as I already said, the bill would make the EITC and all means tested state benefits exempt from garnishment. That's all I had for you guys today. Is there any questions at this time?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I should have raised my hand on the thing. This is Amy. Why does South Carolina seem more advanced? Is there a certain legislator that's really pushed this through, or it's just not necessarily where I would have expected that to come from? Do you know why?
It's not South Carolina that's advanced. It's Michigan that's so far behind. So the national NCLC, National Commission for, I'm blanking on the name right now. They release a report every year that basically ranks each state based on their garnishment protections. Michigan ranks 50th. As you can see, a lot of these other states, both progressive and conservative, protect a lot more money than Michigan does. And yeah, we put South Carolina as the on this chart just so that you could see like you're actually lagging behind them as well too.
So you,
Okay.
this is fascinating, and I know a couple folks have their hands raised. Lisa Tenser, and then Anna.
Hi, thank you so much. This is really, really interesting. And I feel like I have a lot of questions, but I'm just kind of curious, like what your guys' lobbying efforts look like right now. Like I know you mentioned a commission. I might have missed that part. But yeah, who you're working with on lobbying for this, and kind of what the opposition looks like as well.
So that's a great question. We are working on Senate Bill 408 in the legislature. That bill is expected to receive a hearing sometime this month. I think we're working on a date, but it's looking like probably the week of May, was it May 21st? We are working, so organizations that are supporting this legislation include the Responsible Lending Coalition, the Christian Coalition, and more. CDEM is part of it. The Michigan Poverty Law Program is behind it, and MLPP, Michigan League for Public Policy. Sorry, I get all the acronyms messed up. The people who are opposing this bill are generally the creditors' bar, so the creditors' attorneys. They make money based on the volume of filings, and so presumably, if there's more protections, there's less cases that are going to be filed because certain people don't know we protected, and so they're opposed to the bill. And Senator Irwin, who's introduced this legislation, has been working hand in hand with making sure that this bill works for his constituents, as well as is supported by data, and has also been negotiating with the banks and the debt buyers organizations to try and make sure that like everyone is on board with this bill by the time that it gets introduced, and we're hopeful that we're almost there. I think one of the main pieces of opposition that people will bring up is that these protections may limit access to credit. We disagree with that position simply because if that was the case, Michigan currently ranks 50th in garnishment protections. They are not first in access to credit. And there's a lot of states on this list, even Indiana, Ohio, who have better access to credit. Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, which ban wage garnishment entirely, those states all have better access to credit than Michigan does. And it's not like people aren't able to take out loans or take out credit in those states. Where this will affect access to credit is in the total amount of total available credit. That might reduce a little bit. And what that actually looks like in practice is people might not be able to take out a 5th or 6th credit card, which generally is not good practice anyways, but this won't limit your credit otherwise.
Thank you. Anna, do you want?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of thank you, Lisa. Amy, I'm kind of piggybacking off of what she had said. As I'm looking at this information, like we know that Michigan is very behind with everything. And we do need a lot of laws changed, especially for those who are poor and in poverty. I've had that experience myself. Looking at this, and especially when it comes to housing, while $15,000 great for a car, people who are in poverty don't typically have a vehicle worth that much. You're going to be looking at an amount like looking at Illinois, Ohio, etc., for the amount of that their car would be worth. But what's most important is that bank account and making sure that they can pay their rent, because our rent is already so sky high. And I'm looking like this isn't a far enough jump, because then you look at weekly wages, but then if you are taking the bank account, how are you going to pay your rent, your utilities, get food? Are the most basic of needs, I feel, are, because a car, I mean, I've lived, I mean, as an RN making a great amount of money, and my car still wasn't even worth that much. We live in Michigan. No point in buying a new one, but making sure that the rent, that roof over your head, so we don't have further homelessness, that people have food in their stomachs, that their kids are taken care of. That's what I'm kind of looking at. We're not going far enough in that other direction. Because I've now, with the pandemic, experienced these, not necessarily garnishment, but I've had ghost collections coming back. Because unfortunately, a lot of them do buy up ghost credit, and obviously that's another thing. But I don't think we're going far enough, because we shouldn't keep doing increments of, oh, we made a little progress. Let's make the progress. Let's make the change. Let's make it better so that citizens can actually provide for themselves first and foremost over big capital and big money and big corporations.
We definitely agree with all of that, and that's very much in line with what we hear from consumers as well. The fact that they can drain a bank account down to $0 is very destabilizing, and can be linked to pushing people further into poverty.
Just
I didn't
even
have,
800 in Michigan, we already know that no one's paying rent of 800 even for a 1-bedroom.
Yeah.
When we look, I mean, looking at maybe suggesting looking at the rent levels and kind of looking at that at least and figuring that into their utility schedules.
Yeah, I agree with you fully. And these numbers didn't start at 800. It's just that's what's been negotiated down to. We're hopeful that it won't be negotiated further.
And this is Amy, just to wrap this section up. I don't want to be remiss, and back to Anna's point about just getting some teeth behind this. Is there a sign-on letter or anything you can either drop in the chat or share with me, and I can push it out on our social media to get more folks to put some support behind this before we transition back to the rest of the meeting? If you want to share that in the chat or send it to me personally, Micah would be happy to get that out to our folks.
That'd be great. I will send you our sign-on letter, and we're also, if you guys would be willing to provide testimony or a letter or card of support, that would also go a long way as well.
Yeah, and you can let me know, Ishan, when you have a hearing. We can push that information out as well and get it to all of our great advocates who will jump on it. And this is fascinating. You and I met several weeks ago, and I had no idea that our legislation and our laws were, from 1964, and just how much modernization they need to bring it up to current time. So it's really fascinating and tragic that this practice is still happening to people at the very lowest income levels. So thank you so much for your work on this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks. And now we'd like to skip around a little bit. We have a special guest with us. And so we're going to go to our state updates. Amy, if you don't mind going to that slide. And we have Senator Rosemary Bayer here with us. So Senator Bayer, I don't know if you want to talk about some exciting news with the expungement bill, Senate Bill 801.
Sure. I'll take us a couple minutes, and thank you for pushing me in there on your changing your agenda around. We are kind of scrambling because all of a sudden, happily, we are on schedule for a hearing on this Wednesday. So it looks like it'll be at noon. If anybody is interested in participating, it's wonderful. We're sending good words to the chair. We'll be in Judiciary on Wednesday, I think at 12 o'clock. So the bill itself, the Senate Bill 801, is basically does a sealing of eviction records for 2 years. And then after 2 years, they are expunged. And so, of course, there's a lot of specifics inside of that. It has to be court ordered, right? The court has to decide that it is in the best interest of fairness, basically, to seal an eviction record. And then there are some specifics behind what would be caused that. So for example, if the property is sold after a foreclosure, then you have vacated, right? If you left, right, you're not foreclosed on. If you don't have adequate notice, it doesn't count. It doesn't apply. If you've received funds from the state or the federal or local government to pay rental assistance, that will not apply. You will not have to be, you will be sealed. Sorry, these are the things you will be sealed. If you have filed under the COVID stuff, any of the COVID experiential things, the executive directives, if the parties agree to seal, that's a good one. If you fill the terms of the judgment, and if the non-payment was for less than $900 for any of those reasons, the judge can then seal the record. And then after 2 years, it is expunged. It's pretty short bill, pretty short set of specifics. Unless you guys have any questions, we're really excited about it. It was one of the top things on our list for quite a while. We have a number of other things going on in this space, of course, as you know. But we're really thrilled that this suddenly showed up on an agenda.
Yes, we're thrilled too. Thank you so much, Senator Bayer. Does anyone? Oh, Anna's got a question. Anna?
No question, just thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. I've been working on this with our Senate Majority Leader, Senator Brinks, through my own eviction that was retaliatory. And when I heard this from Lisa, I'm so grateful. Thank you. Mary Bear,
it's astonishing how many people
for keeping this going and pushing it and telling us about it. This is exciting. will it be viewed, be able to be viewed live?
They're
If we
always,
can
they're always
attend?
scheduled
They're
live.
always viewed, right? Okay.
Yep, yep, and you are welcome to come. We are looking for, people with experience who want to talk about it to come and speak at the hearing, so you can reach out to me if you want to do that. But also just, anybody who sends, you can send an email to the chair, this is Civil Rights Committee, and just make a statement that way. That's great. I don't know, we're just excited about this. We're hoping that we can maybe get some of our other we have our cap on application fees and junk fees for landlords too, that we're hoping to get in
Yes.
before the end of this summer, before the beginning of the summer break, so.
Yes, no. Well, thank you so much for championing this bill and others. You've been the main housing advocate, and we so appreciate it. If we'll be pushing out information and ways to watch the hearing or participate, and putting in a card of support. So we're reaching out to all of our advocates and partners. So we're excited to do that. Thank you so much. This is a much improved bill from, the initial one that was, last session with Senator Branks, as Anna mentioned. And, it's a best practice to seal it on the front end and then expungement on the back end.
And there's
especially
time.
when-
Exactly. Makes a lot of sense.
A judgment.
So the
yeah.
other thing to pay attention to, of course, is the budget stuff. I don't know if you guys are watching it, but we put in almost 200, well, I think it's actually over 200 million additional dollars for different facets of housing support, affordability, all kinds of things. So a big focus, adding more people to MCAH. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. There's money in HHS now for housing, just everywhere we can. So we're going to try very hard to make sure that stays in through the whole process. We certainly have support in the Senate. That's a good news.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll be able to come up with numbers that are that good or better when we sit down with the House folks.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we are watching it. We're keeping our eyes. We know there's a lot of good investments, at least in there right now. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for all you do. We really appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you. And we'll see you on Wednesday.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
All right. Thanks. All right. We'll hop over to federal updates. And as I mentioned, I'm continuing for Eric. So just, an update. The fiscal year 2025 budget now, negotiations are underway. President Biden submitted his on the 11th of March, and it represented, an increase in $258 billion in affordable housing and vouchers and other programs. However, with the current environment, it doesn't look like there's political, backing right now to pass all of those increases. And if you remember back in fiscal year 23 and the debt ceiling negotiations and limits, so the percentage of spending increases is limited to 1% for this coming fiscal year budget. So that's kind of a constraint that we have to work within. The House and Senate Transportation and HUD committees held recent hearings. Appropriators do not agree on spending caps, which is not a big surprise. Republicans on the House committee also on appropriations announced new guidance banning not-for-profit organizations from receiving earmarks from HUD's Economic Development Initiative programs in fiscal year 25. So, the message is keep your eye on this process. It's going to be playing out in the next couple months. As you know, the budget needs to be finalized and enacted by October with a final spending bill. And so with this being an election year, there's even more pressure to get this done earlier by the end of summer before recesses happen. So we really want you to keep an eye on it. And we'll go to the next slide so we can take action to advocate for, federal investments in vouchers and other housing programs. Yes, Max. Did you have a question?
Yes. I have a question about the guidance around the nonprofits not being able to be recipients, because that was something that our agency is researching for, different programs now and in the future. Is that something that's been enacted, or that's something that
No.
they're proposing, or what is the status on that?
Yeah, it's not been enacted. It's just a proposal right now. We'll see where that goes. I expect there will be some pushback on it. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it and,
And
push out.
is there intention that it would be municipalities then that would receive it, and then it would go from there? Or is it like, I assume it's not private businesses that would be able to receive these funds, so.
Right. Yeah, so let me, I don't think I have a link for that yet. Yeah, so we'll just push out more information as we get it, but that's, and I can actually, Amy, go to the slide with the take action. So you can, our partners at National Low Income Housing Coalition have a great action center where you can see a lot of, there we go, thank you. There's sign-ons there. I actually use it too. It's a great way to find out what's going on, what's happening, any news. So you can take a look there. And of course, we will be pushing out more information as we get it on what's happening with the budget and with the earmark issue. All right. Next slide. So there's also a sign-on letter for CDBG funding. It's a Dear Colleagues letter from Senator Baldwin is circulating. The ask is $4.2 billion for the CDBG program. And just as a reminder, this is funds that are used in communities for housing, for infrastructure of all kinds, projects, economic development, services to low and moderate income citizens. And there have been substantial cuts since 2001 of $1.1 billion. So we really advocate for this funding to be in place because it's really important for low income communities and programs. So what the action you need to take is to urge your senator and representative to sign this Dear Colleague letter. There's one in the Senate and the House. And it closes May 9th, so that's Thursday. So we'll pop that link into the chat right now. All right, I don't think I see any questions. Do you, Amy? Give me a moment here.
No, and I know this is normally Eric's section, but there was one more
That's all right.
slide. Yep, this is the last one.
Thanks. So yeah, one other critical thing, and this is very exciting. This is HUD has a proposed rule on criminal screening and HUD assisted properties. And this is one that would clarify the relevant types of criminal activity. It kind of puts a finer point on what PHAs and owners can screen for. It limits the look back period and admission decisions to no more than 3 years prior to the date of the housing application. It also mandates an individual assessment of the particular tenant application history and what their particular, if there's any, different information that could be looked at to help with a decision or explain past history. And it's interesting because we have a state bill, House Bill 4878, that also is very similar to this, that would, be a state law, but this is a federal law that HUD is proposing to update their criminal screening on HUD assisted housing. So we really urge people to sign on for this and make your voice heard and say you approve of this and that HUD should enact it. And again, Lisa, thank you. Vera's press release on this particular HUD proposed rule. All right, so next slide, we'll go back to the state updates real quick. And the legislature has been very busy. They held a hearing on the source of income bills last month. On the 17th, there was no vote. but they took testimony. They are waiting for the Senate version and the House version language to be consistent, and then they will be taking a vote. So that could happen. It was supposed to happen last week, but it could happen, you know, in the coming weeks before the end of the month for the holiday break. And then also, there was a hearing last week. Was it last week or the week before? The week before, on the right to counsel, eviction legal services, and civil matters. They held a hearing, a lot of great testimony. There was no vote there as well, but they expect, I think, to do some sort of a vote yet this month. So very exciting to follow all this action in our legislature. So we will let you know about the hearing on Wednesday and where you can put in a card of support. Thank you, Lisa. Next slide, please. Wanted to make you aware of a kind of a summit, a one-day conference that the Michigan Department of Civil Rights is holding. It is going to be Wednesday, June 12th, excuse me, in Detroit at the Icon. And they're going to be having some great speakers, Lisa Rice from the National Fair Housing Alliance, Colette Massengale from National Association of Realtors, a lot of great workshop topics. There's also an exhibitor area, and nonprofits have a free opportunity to exhibit. So if you're interested in, you know, putting a booth together, Micah will be having a booth and we'll be attending. So we encourage you to participate as well. And I can put that link in so you can find that, or you can just Google Summit on Fair Housing from the Department of Civil Rights. All right. We want to thank you for many of you participating in our 8th annual Advocacy Day that we held last month in Lansing on the 23rd. We had about 120 people participate. We had 60 people with lived experience advocating with us. We participated in 56 legislative visits, and many of you are continuing to do follow-up. So we really thank you for that, and really kind of highlighting all of the great legislation that's been sponsored that we want to push over into a favorable vote and enacted into legislation, as well as budget priorities. You heard Senator Bayer talk about the processes, you know, really winding up in the next month. So it's really critical that we keep our eye on what's going on there as well. So here's where you come in and different things you can do to take action. Next slide, Amy. And I did also want to just say, you know, in terms of making your voice heard and making your organizational or personal, you know, choices and what you think is important known, you know, this really ties back to the recent case that the Supreme Court heard on criminalization of homelessness in Grants Pass, Oregon. You know, these are some of the budget and priorities that we are advocating for from the Interagency Council and the Campaign to End Homelessness. And a lot of them are around unsheltered homelessness, providing for more interim housing, more shelter, more wages for shelter staff to increase the capacity of sheltering, as well as permanent housing and deep services and permanent supportive housing, so people with the most vulnerabilities can stay housed. And so we really want to advocate for these priorities. And kind of when you're talking and making those points and advocating, really tie this to the concerns about the state of our affordable housing. There isn't enough housing anywhere for anybody who makes minimum wage and only working one job or even two jobs to afford in the state of Michigan. And if people are concerned about rising levels of homelessness and unsheltered homelessness, then we really need to put our money where our mouth is and advocate for priorities and investments that will increase our, you know, our whole housing system and also our sheltering system for people at the lowest levels. So we really hope that you'll raise your voice and you'll stay tuned and really advocate and let your member, your senator, or your House rep know that it's really important to include these investments in our state budget. And the process is going to be winding down in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Thank you. Now a couple updates from us. Want to just make sure that you know that we are continuing to do election work this election season cycle. We have a grant from our partners at National Low Income Housing Coalition, and we will be partnering with many of you, hopefully out there. We will be doing candidate surveys, as we always do, and letting you know after the August primary what the candidates said, what their views are, what their priorities are, how they feel about homeless response and housing funding in our local communities. We also will be doing voter registration and education events, so partnering with shelters and housing providers. So if you're interested in partnering with us, we'd love to talk to you about what we're doing. We're interested in doing some town halls as well with candidates to kind of include people with lived experience, asking questions, and potential voters asking questions of potential candidates, And so let us know, reach out if you're interested. Next slide, please. So our monthly training this month is going to be held on Monday, May 20th. This is a free training that we put on, and it is from 1 to 2:30. And the title of the training is Techniques to Improve Navigation Across Basic Needs Resource Systems and Empower Service Providers. So this is with presenter Sean Taft, and she's an MSW, and she has a really long career in a number of different systems. So she's talking about kind of how to navigate those systems that are often not compatible, complex, different sectors, different requirements. So this workshop will illustrate the use of resources and referral tools like listservs and decision trees, and ways to assist if you're a service provider in meeting client needs. Thank you, Allison. The link is right there in the chat. And Allison, did you want to have anything else about the training?
Nope, Sean's great. This would be a really great training for any frontline staff or new staff to housing and homeless services. I mean, everyone is welcome, but that's
the focus.
And it's free.
Great, thank you. And for those of you that can't make it on Monday, May 20th, we also post it on our YouTube, so you can catch it there as well, the recording. All right. And next from Micah, we have our Breakfast of Champions. This is our 10th annual day. It is on Tuesday, June 11th at the meeting space in Lansing. And more importantly, this is our time to recognize those of you that are working in your local communities, out in the field. We have nominations open for our different categories of champions, including community, advocacy, data, volunteer, and Homeless Awareness Month champion. So there's the QR code there, and we'll put the link in shortly for you to register. And if you want to nominate someone, we'd love for you to do that, because those stories it's my favorite day of the year to hear about all the great work that's going on.
And Lisa, this is Amy. If I could just do a further plug, this QRC code will take you to register. We'll drop the overall link in the chat. But I really want to promote the concept of the nomination process. This is a very democratic process. It doesn't have to be someone necessarily who's a legislator for advocacy or somebody who's an executive director. It could be somebody you volunteer with at a local group in your community that's out doing good voter registration work or promoting a candidate or something. So there's nomination information. Lisa alluded to the categories, but especially for advocacy, we just want to stress that this does not have to be a senator or a representative or even somebody in elected office. It could be a warrior in your community that's just been tirelessly advocating. So I just wanted to stress that, and we'll make sure to put all those links in the chat as well.
Thank you, Amy. Anna, you have your hand up.
Yes, will it also be held virtually?
Last year we live streamed it on Facebook.
We will be doing that again, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
is that registration under the same registration, or do we just have to sign up for the event on Facebook?
If you live stream it, you just go that day to our Facebook page and you'll see a little screen. It'll be up and running, and then you just enlarge it and watch it on your laptop or computer
registration.
or phone. There's no registration needed. We want to make it as accessible as possible for folks who can't join us in person.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Anna. Appreciate you. All right, next slide. This is where you come in. I know we have a lot of community folks on the call today. Does anyone have anything going on, anything you want to talk about in your community, any events, any issues that you want to raise here?
I guess, Lisa, this is Anna. I did put something in the chat, and I know not everybody's able to read the chat as they're on lunches, but I am going to be moving to Miami. But as you all know, the majority of you know, I have been part of MICA for over, I don't know, 3.5 years now. I've been part of the Coalition for Expanding Housing Access since our inception. Is that over 2 years? I don't know, I'm losing track of time. Either way, just because I'm going to be in another state, this is my home since I was 1 year old. But I'm not leaving you guys, and I'm not going to stop using my story because it's still broken, which means it's still broken for other people. And you guys are still my family, and I'm not going to stop advocating for Michigan and for homelessness and everything that we've been doing. So I just kind of wanted to just throw that out there because you guys truly are family, and you keep people like myself who unfortunately experience these things and live through them fighting, and give us a platform to do so. So I just wanted to share that, and I appreciate every single one of you guys. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. You've been a wonderful advocate. And yes, Amanda's saying keep up your fight. And I know you will. I know we'll still be seeing you. So it'll be a good move for you. And I know you'll stay in touch. Anything else going on with anyone? Any community or organization? All right. We can move on then. And
I had a
just
quick question, Lisa. Did anybody here attend Advocacy Day that they wanted to share? I'm still getting all the pictures edited, and I'm going to get information out to thank everybody for coming. But was there anybody here who attended that wanted to add any comments? Okay. Sorry, Lisa. Thank you.
It's all right. Thanks, Amy. You know, I think we made a big splash, and a lot of people had some really great meetings. And when they couldn't have meetings, they did drop off. So that was super important too, to just let the legislators know, hey, we're here. These are the issues we care about. We have a lot of great champions, and we've had a lot of engagement. Thanks to all of you. So keep it up. We'll get a break this summer, but not till probably towards the 4th of July holiday. But this is crunch time. So we really need to raise our voices and really talk about what's important and what will make a difference in moving the needle on ending homelessness and increasing housing assets. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you have questions. I'm around, and I will be attending the hearing on Wednesday. And we'll keep you posted on ways that you can, make your opinions known and voices heard. There's different ways that you can connect with us. Our website, we're on social media. You can email us or see us on Facebook or LinkedIn. Really appreciate all of you. Lauren.
Hey, I'm so sorry for my late hand, but I wanted to let everyone know that we are at United Way partnering with Nonprofit Vote to do a couple of trainings, and they're free to everyone. So if you're a part of a nonprofit, I'm gonna go ahead and just throw them in the chat. And you can share them with anyone, but we would love to see some of our housing partners there. So yeah, I'm just gonna add them really quickly. There's one that's like intro to voter engagement, and then the other one is a deep dive with a voter engagement plan. So I was just reminded by your
Our
voting.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm just pulling them up and throwing them in the
Great.
chat real quick.
yeah, this is such a critical year for elections, both statewide. The entire state house will be up for re-election or election. Of course, the presidential election, we have a state or our senator, our congressperson up for election. So it's really going to be a critical time. And this is the time to start, getting engaged and getting involved and paying attention, because it will be here before we know it. So thanks, everyone. Lauren, thanks. I see your, yeah, we'll get these as part of the links that we.
Thank you so much. And then they're on the 9th and the 16th, but yes, also Amy, I will email them to you right now as well.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Anyone else, any parting thoughts or last pieces of info to share? Want to thank Ishan and Senator Bayer for their guest spots today. Really appreciate you and everyone who weighed in, and for all of you for attending. So stay tuned and we will hopefully engage with you this month, or if not, we'll see you next month.